Yeah. Would you like me to record as a backup? Rebecca?
Yeah, that's a good idea, and we're live.
Okay.
You can switch it. Can you make me a host, please? Thanks. Okay, thanks. Gary, we're ready.
Hey, very good. Hey, welcome, everybody. After last month, cold weather and those damn groundhogs. You know, can't. I'm glad that the weather's starting to turn and lighter days ahead. Good weather may be coming. But anyway, welcome to our Hudson 7 hybrid meeting for what's today, March 12th,
Yes.
right? 2025. So thank you for joining the Hudson 7 Drinking Water Council's our hybrid monthly meeting. My name is Gary Bassett, Mayor of Village of Rhinebeck, and also Chair of the Hudson 7. Hudson 7 meetings will be streamed live on Hudson 7's YouTube channel. Public is always advised to subscribe to this channel. Our in-person meetings occur here at the Poughkeepsie Water Treatment Facility. Thank you. Located at Waterworks Road, Poughkeepsie, New York. We do allow public comment, both in person and remotely. Please visit our website to learn how to provide public comment. And you can do that at www.hudson7.org and visit our meeting page. So we're going to take a roll call. I'm going to start with those here at the table. I'll start here to my right.
Devin Rigolino, Dutchess County.
Richard Distal, City of Poughkeepsie.
Jonathan Churns, Dutchess County Water and Wastewater Authority.
Danielle Freer, Supervisor of the Town of Esopus.
And Shershin, Town of Poughkeepsie.
Jonathan Oakley, Poughkeepsie Water Plant Supervisor.
And on the screen, I'm going to start in our upper left with Rebecca.
Rebecca Martin, Source Water Protection Coordinator, Consultant for the Hudson 7.
John.
John Lipscomb, recently retired Riverkeeper Patrol Boat Captain and VP for Advocacy.
You do have to rub it in, don't you? Paul.
Paul, you're muted.
You're muted, Paul.
Someday I'll learn how to do this. Paul Malmrose, I'm the Hudson 7 Engineering Advisor.
Eric.
Eric Weinstock, Hyde Park, CAC and Geology Technical Advisor.
Janet.
Shannon Roback, Science Director at Riverkeeper, Technical Advisor.
And in my lower left, Ryan.
Good evening, everyone. Ryan Sharp, Town Board Member, Ward 5.
Thank you, Ryan.
This is Ryan's first meeting, Gary, in Hudson 7.
Welcome, Ryan.
Nice to put a face to the name.
Thank you.
Mike.
Yeah, Mike Forging, I am a technical assistance provider with the Department of Health for DWSP2.
Yeah, Paige.
Hi, Paige Bogart. I'm also a TA provider for DWSP2 out of the Department of Health.
And who do we have on the phone?
That's Dan.
Hi, Dan Shapley with Riverkeeper and an advisor to the Hudson 7.
And we now have Nick with us from.
Hello, Nick Butler, Town of Esopus, Support You and Water Superintendent.
All right, so we have a quorum. I'm going to call the meeting to order. Get right down to business. So I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes from January 8th, 2025.
I'll second.
Lisa, any questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. We're not going to have a treasury report. Elizabeth is ill. I think it's a good time to, Lisa, you would now accept the role of secretary. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Welcome. Welcome to the new job.
Thank you. Well,
Not welcome to the club, but welcome to the.
well, thank goodness. And thank goodness I do minutes for 3 other organizations. So I'm just thrilled Rebecca does the minutes for this
Yeah.
group.
I know.
Yes.
All right. So, Rebecca, you're up.
So I've supplied you with 3 months of reports. It's a lot of the same, but there are links here. Rather than read through item by item, if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Otherwise, we can move forward.
Any questions on Rebecca's reports? Hearing none, we're going to move on, Rebecca.
Okay.
Communications.
All right, so we have an update from the DEC regarding the pilot program to remove 156 acres of invasive water chestnuts in Germantown. We discussed this a few months ago, and we got an update that given the questions, this is a quote, about scale and the feedback from Germantown stakeholders, we have removed Germantown from the potential management project list for 2026. Instead, we are planning to conduct a smaller scale water chestnut management demonstration project in the DEC managed portions of the Hudson River. In preparation for the 2026 season, we will conduct extensive environmental surveys at the proposed management site and organize stakeholder engagement events in 2025, which may include potential public meetings. So thanks to Dottie and Dan and others, Paul, for providing insights on the original proposed plan. And that's the update and closes the loop. Any questions? No? So on the subject of leachate, this is again, because we didn't meet last month, we have updates that are a little bit older, and this is one of them. There was a new research article on leachate called High Organ Fluorine, Shannon. I don't know how you pronounce that.
Organofluorine.
Thank you.
So close.
Concentrations in municipal wastewater that affect downstream drinking water supplies for millions of Americans. It's a good science document. On PCBs, last month the EPA finalized their review of Upper Hudson PCB cleanup after considering public comment. Agency will issue report addendum by 2027, followed by the Friends of Clean Hudson and their response to the EPA's review. These are all hyperlinks, so they're available to you and the public to review. The Dutchess County Water and Wastewater Authority, Jonathan Shurins, who's with us tonight, the executive director, provided a report on their January 7th and 8th comprehensive safety training provided by Tech Valley Safety. That report was sent to Hudson 7 water treatment plant staff and their municipal leaders, as well as the Hudson 7 Executive Board. There was a recent inquiry from the public about discharges from a tanker boat on the Hudson, and the investigation in question. There was a question regarding a ship discharge at Newburgh Beacon Bridge on January the 19th, a follow-up and resolution to the open question regarding discharges captured from the Automana. The result at a glance, quote, this case involved engine ship system pooling water, and this came from the Coast Guard, by the way. Typically, this discharge is not always visible, i.e. below waterline, when a vessel is loaded. However, as observed in the picture that was circulated, and noted from the recent post visit, the vessel is light and riding high out of the water. Sea river water can be used directly and through heat exchangers to absorb heat from the engine, open loop system. Any questions?
I have one comment, if I may. This kind of report, even though we thought from the beginning that it was cooling water, this kind of report is great to send to the Coast Guard, because then the Coast Guard goes to industry and asks questions. And so even just asking is a strong deterrent, because it says to the industry that the people in the valley are watching and are concerned. It's a great, no punishment, quote unquote, enforcement. So well done.
Everybody here see the picture? Discharge. It's very interesting. All right, thank you.
So Paul Melrose submitted an article, New York City pledges $228 million for Catskills watershed protection, agriculture, in his efforts in monitoring the lower Sopus Creek and the Ashokan Reservoir and impacts to the Hudson River. Paul, is there anything you want to say about that?
No.
Good. And then finally, Dan Shapley submitted an article in the Daily Catch, Gary, that a royal flush, Rhinebeck invests 9.5 million on a winning hand for water treatment upgrades.
Was a royal flush. We were fortunate to get 2 grants, one grant for our water treatment plant, 3.2 million, and we invested another 3, a $6 million project to upgrade our water plant in the village of Rhinebeck. And we have a 0 interest loan for 2 years for $3 million, or actually $5 million, from EFC to upgrade our wastewater treatment plant. And at the end of that 2 years, it'll convert to a long-term loan, which we had to spend about, our plan is to spend about 3.5 million. Those projects are getting underway within the next 2 months. So we're excited that we're going to be doing a lot of work in the village of Rhinebeck to close the cycle. And I really like to say it's a closed cycle because you bring water in from the river, we process it, it goes to your home or to wherever, you use it for the bathe, cook, whatever, but a lot of it gets flushed right back into our wastewater stream where we treat it and put it back into the river. So it's a complete water cycle that we're upgrading right now, which is kind of, people don't realize how it's all connected.
Thanks, Gary. Congratulations. So there's no public comment. That's the end of communication, sorry. And there's no public comment this evening.
All right, so I want to spend the majority of this meeting on the 2+ years that have been spent with a committee here and Mike and Dan especially on our DWSP2 presentation. It's a significant effort. It's a 90-page report that is now distributed out to everybody. And at the end of this report, we'll take questions and actions, but we plan to then work with all the municipalities to make sure that they're aware of the good work that was done. Back you up. This was a grant, which you guys, I think, were administrating for us in the very beginning. Town of Esopus, weren't you the signer for getting us into the grant, I think, Danielle? Wasn't it Esopus, Rebecca, that submitted the grant?
Yes.
So thank you, because it really, this is the first of its kind to get a grant that really worked for seven municipalities to really, for a long time, there's many other municipalities that are involved in DWSP2s, but we were their poster child. And I think this report is state of the art. So I'm now going to turn it over to Mike and Dan.
Yeah, and Mike, before you begin, this is our second go around with a presentation. And maybe you can just preface that before we launch into what we have here. Remember, we did a presentation initially for the Hudson 7 in the fall, but you and Dan decided to go back, the committee decided to go back to the table to work on it a little more, and this is the result.
Yes. So, Dan, you planned on doing the first slides, correct?
Yep, Dan's here.
Okay, I just want to confirm he was here.
Yeah, sorry. Let me just bring it up. I'm getting back to my desk, but I can get us started here.
Dan, can I help you in some way?
No, I've got the presentation in front of me here now. So if I just can't see the screen. Are you walking through the slides?
Yes.
Okay. So this will be so what we did was we wanted to revise the presentation, streamline it, give it the right context. And what we hope to do is obviously present here, and then that brings all the council up to a level of, a baseline of understanding about it. But what we really want to offer is to go on the road and bring this presentation to your town boards, or I know Hyde Park, I think it's the CAC has requested a presentation. So to make sure that we can, give the right decision makers a window in on what the plan is. So if that's enough intro, I can sort of start talking through the slides.
Yep, go for it, Dan. I've got the first slide open for you.
All right. So what we're here to talk about is a milestone, the first ever drinking water source protection plan for the Hudson River, and it was developed by the Hudson River Drinking Water Intermunicipal Council with support from our Department of Health and the Drinking Water Source Protection Program at the state. So you can go to the next slide.
Yep.
The Hudson 7, as you know, was established in 2018, and the voting members include 5 communities that operate drinking water treatment plants on the Hudson, and the other communities that draw water from those same systems, as well as the 2 counties that those communities are located in. So that's the towns of Esopus, Hyde Park, and Lloyd, the city and town of Poughkeepsie, village and town of Hyde Park, and Dutchess and Ulster counties. And overall, 100,000 people rely on the water that comes from the Hudson River and is treated and delivered to those communities. You go to the next slide. So since the beginning, the Hudson 7 has had a number of goals that have remained quite consistent, which are listed here. It's to identify and support each other in getting funding for the water systems that we rely on. It's to improve communication among the various agencies and entities that have a role in protecting the Hudson River. It is to coordinate those agencies on issues that are important to the drinking water supply and to our use of it. It is to ultimately improve the water quality for the Hudson River and to ensure that it remains and stays and is a safe drinking water supply. Ultimately, and one of the things the Hudson 7 has done so powerfully is to be a unified voice advocating for the Hudson River as a drinking water source, which is something that was lacking before the council formed. Next slide, please. And I'm going to be able to sign on here at my desk in just a second. Sorry for the disjointed presentation.
Just a second and get, okay, or not.
So what makes the Hudson 7 unique, it is a first of its kind. There never was a connection between the communities that rely on the Hudson, and now being coordinated as a council allows for that kind of coordination. I'm going to switch audio here.
No, he's coming. He's just signing on to Zoom.
Yeah. I'm really sorry about that, folks. It's been a busy day running between things. So the Hudson 7 also ensures that the drinking water is a primary goal in decision making, and not forgotten that the quality of the drinking water is essential. So as decisions are made up and down the river, we are seeing now that drinking water is a focus and a concern that is brought to the front, and that was the point of forming the Hudson 7. Obviously, it's really important because no community that relies on the river is in control of all of the things that influence that river's quality. The Hudson River watershed is vast in its size, so a lot of land area influences the river. So there has to be a collaboration among municipalities and a coordination with state and federal agencies in order to do what needs to be done. And we're proud to say that this effort over these last several years has resulted in a paradigm shift, and now drinking water is a high priority. We see it referenced and considered in a way that it never was before the council formed. Next slide, please. So some examples of impact of the Hudson 7 to date. Coal tar cleanup at Poughkeepsie that had been slated to begin several years ago is being redesigned in order to ensure that not only can the contamination on the bottom of the river be cleaned up, but that be done in a way without putting the intakes that are nearby at risk of contamination. We saw the Hudson 7 come together and coordinate with the company TDI that had proposed a transmission cable in the Hudson and ensure that pilot testing was done of the construction technology and that monitoring was done in a way that would ensure that the drinking water was not put at risk during the construction of that project. There's a shared services agreement between the communities that allows for sharing of lab services and equipment and other expertise among the water plant operators and their staff. And what we are here today to really talk about is the Drinking Water Source Protection Plan, which, as I said, is the first of its kind. So not only is it the first, but it is important because it establishes state-approved goals for the Hudson. So in many ways, what we see in the plan are things that the Hudson 7 has been doing for these several years that it's been in formation, but it puts a future time horizon on it, and it puts the underpinning of a state approval on it. So we can always point back to this plan and say, hey, this is in the plan. This is important because you name it in the plan. So it's an anchor and a foundation for future advocacy in behalf of our water supply. And now I'll turn it over to Mike and Paige to discuss some of how the plan comes together.
Great, thanks, Tim. So as a quick reminder about how this program works, when we created DWSP2, we work in 3 phases. We have an assessment phase where we analyze your water system in terms of water quality and quantity. We map out potential contaminant sources in your source water area, and we create source water maps where we delineate a critical area and a source water area for your water sources. We then move on to strategize, where we create protection and management methods to address the concerns associated with your system. And then we develop a timeline for implementation. And then we finally get to do what we're doing now, where we start to move to the protection phase, where we actually implement these methods, track and share the progress, and then we just raise awareness for the program itself. Slide. So when we first started this plan, we began our source water mapping, and we delineated this upstream watershed that basically drains to the section of the Hudson where the intakes are located in the river. And so if you look on this figure, I don't have a mouse to point, but there are some red lines kind of towards the bottom center. Those are the Hudson 7's municipal boundaries, and everything that's highlighted above that is the drainage basin that empties to that point in the river. The problem is that this is an enormous area, and it's just not really practical for the Hudson 7 to address on their own. And so you can go to the next slide. What we did was we delineated what we're calling the source water area for this plan. You can go to the next slide. One more time. Yeah, perfect. Thank you. And so this is the source water area. And again, that red boundary in the middle is the same Hudson 7 municipal boundaries that you saw on that previous map. And all of these watersheds drain into the Hudson River close to the intake locations. And so you'll notice that the 3 of the watersheds on the right-hand side are a blue checkered. That's because they have their own DWSP2 plans going right now, and so they're not a focus of this plan specifically, but it is highly encouraged to collaborate with those plan management teams from those communities throughout the process. So if we zoom in again now further onto those red boundaries, the municipal boundaries, you can go to the next slide. This is what we're calling the municipal management zone. And so everything highlighted here is the combined area of the Hudson Seven's municipal boundaries and a nearshore drainage basin that closely overlaps with these municipal boundaries. The green area is what we're considering to be the critical area for this plan. And what this is a 1,000-foot buffer along the Hudson River and 300-foot buffers along the major tributaries in that municipal management zone. And you can go to the next slide. Oh, and I think this is obvious, but just to clarify, the dots, obviously, the dots are the locations of the intakes. And so the red dots that are on the left-hand side on the bottom, those are the Lloyd upland intakes, and the others are the Hudson River intakes. Okay, you can go to the next slide. And this is that same map, but we overlaid potential contaminant sources on it. And so what things that you might notice here are that they're mostly clustered around population centers and travel corridors, like highways. But this is just really valuable information to have to reference in case there's some kind of contamination event somewhere in your source water area. And we excluded some potential contaminant sources from this map. Like, for example, petroleum bulk storage tanks would just flood the entire map with points. But all of that data has been provided to the stakeholders. And we also have potential contaminant source maps like this one for each individual watershed that drains to the Hudson that were shown in that source water map. So we have a lot of potential contaminant source maps that are included with the report itself. And I think at this point, I'm passing it back to one of our stakeholders, Dan Shepley.
Great, thank you. And the plan lays out 6 priority issues, and here they are. One, and with the slides that come after this, I'll go into a little bit of depth about each of these. But one is the emergency notification and emergency response plans. 2 is source water monitoring and linked research agenda. 3 is education and outreach. 4, watershed management. And 5, utility coordination and shared services. And 6 is interagency coordination to align state and federal policies. And I'll touch on each of these just a little bit right now. So for the emergency response and notification goal, the goal here, the big goal, is to reduce the risk of hazardous spills from rail or river-based transport. So those tankers, barges, and rail cars that are transporting materials up and along the river, we want to make sure that we are not facing risks of spills. This has been a high concern for the Hudson 7 since its formation. So we want to build on collaboration with the Coast Guard, the DEC, and other agencies to request that a spill drill take place in the vicinity of Hudson 7's drinking water supply and in the vicinity of our intakes, that we learn from that effort. So a spill drill can take various forms, but it's essentially getting all of the agencies involved in a spill response together in order to understand how they will coordinate in the event of an accident. So we want to update then the emergency response plans to deal with any lessons learned from that process. Obviously, the ultimate goal is to prevent, not just be able to try to respond to spills, because that's really the goal, because any spill will have impacts and we want to avoid that. The next step is that the Coast Guard is updating what it calls the Area Contingency Plan, which is a spill response plan for our region. And so we want to make sure that Hudson 7 is involved in that process and its priorities are reflected in the updated plan. Next slide, please. So to monitor our drinking water source, our source waters, we recognize through the creation of the plan that We know, we have information about water quality in the Hudson River, obviously, but we also don't have all the information that we would want to really understand the dynamics and the way the river can change over time. And particularly one of the things that the group that developed the plan faced over and over again was a question of scale and distance to say, is this pollutant relevant if it is discharged at a point, far to the north, far upstream? Is it still relevant or not? So what we want to do is not only improve the monitoring of the Hudson relevant to drinking water concerns, but also develop an action or a research agenda so that those questions about the fate and transport of certain contaminants that can get answered over time. Because we recognize we don't have all the answers right now. We don't have all the information that we'd really want to have a sophisticated source water monitoring effort that can really lead to adjusting management of the water sources at the treatment plants or to stopping pollution sources that might be relevant. So we are expecting and hoping for a good decision on a state grant that Riverkeeper has put in for to start this pilot testing, and we hope we'll have good news to share very soon on that. So for education and outreach, the goal is to inform municipal decision makers. That's why we're here with this presentation, but also public involvement more broadly. So one of the things we're doing or is really to continue what the Hudson 7 has been doing, having its public meetings, having its website, its social media presence, all of the communications that are done to make sure that those continue and are strengthened and that we continue the good work that has been happening there to build on. We also are doing these presentations and want to work with the MS4, that's the stormwater compliance in the municipalities that are working on that to see where we can collaborate more on public outreach and awareness related to that. So you are witnessing the next step here. We want to make presentations like this throughout the Hudson 7 watershed to bring people up to speed on what the plan is. So this one I want to really land on because this is a goal that really comes down to each of the municipalities that are in the Hudson 7. The plan identifies making sure that we as the ones who are drinking the water and have some control over land use within our communities have exemplary watershed protection policies in place. So this will build on the collaboration that we already have, the strong collaboration among the members of the council, and build on the growing awareness that it has created about the Hudson River as a drinking water source, but really be able to say what can be done to make sure that our streams are well protected, our steep slopes, our wetlands, anything that has a real strong nexus with water quality protection and watershed protection in our communities, that we're getting it right here so that then we can be an exemplar to communities throughout the larger watershed. So the Hudson 7 will be looking to complete a code review that was started a couple of years ago, and we'll give a menu and a report for each community to look at and consider. And obviously each community will make its own decisions, but it'll have a resource to be able to see where local laws and zoning could be adapted and tuned up if any are not currently at a sort of best management practice level. Thanks. Our next goal is on utility coordination and shared services. And again, this is building on a strong foundation of the work that the Hudson 7 has been doing. Rebecca and the work with the operators has already built a strong network of communication and collaboration among the operators. There's Operation Appreciation Week each year that's timed around the anniversary of the formation of the Hudson 7 in May. And really, it's relying in a great degree on the collaboration of Poughkeepsie, which is the biggest treatment plant in the among the seven and has the most sophisticated treatment and water testing capabilities. So really has some capacity to provide as a service to some of the other communities. The next step is a continuing education session that the Hudson 7 has organized with the operator group. And then finally, the last of our goals is really the heart of all of it, because as we have been saying throughout, the Hudson 7 the communities have some control and role over what happens within their communities, within each community, but the Hudson's watershed is so vast, we can't do it all without collaboration and without the support of other agencies, particularly at the state and federal level. So this is a broad goal that encompasses a lot of different initiatives, including many of those that I mentioned in an earlier slide on some of the progress that's been made. But we really want to build on the successes, build on the relationships, make sure things like that manufactured gas plant cleanup, the spill response plans by the Coast Guard, and really any agency decision or role that the state or federal government has, make sure that the Hudson 7 is involved, make sure that the concerns are on the table, and that those decisions are made fully reflective of the goals that the Hudson 7 has for protecting the drinking water supply. Thanks. I think I'm turning back over to Mike for this next set of slides, so thank you.
Sure. So this slide is really just to inform all the communities that this does allow you to get climate smart community points. You get 6 points for creating a plan and having it approved by the state, and then you get 4 points for actually implementing 2 or more of the protection and management methods. So 10 overall.
Maybe this is back to me. So we'll make note that slide's probably mine too. We did a dry run, but here's another dry run. So importantly this slide is particularly for the communities that we might be presenting in each of the municipalities. But the role that you have in implementing the plan as local decision makers. Number one, read the plan, identify those items that are important to you, and engage through your Hudson 7 representative, your voting member, to work on those items. Make sure that that you're familiar with what's in the plan. Two, as all of the communities are doing now, make sure that you have that representative who is showing up to the Hudson 7 meetings and participating and being an active member and representing your town or village or city on the council, and that your operator of your water treatment plant is also participating in the operator meetings, because that coordination is really where a lot of this happens. 3, make time for occasional updates from the representative of the Hudson 7 to your council or your board. 4, consider the results of that code review that I mentioned. So that will give you a menu of options that might benefit the watershed protection in your community. So you'll have a report and a plan that you can consider for local changes. And finally, always communicate your support for the plan and for the Hudson 7 to your state representatives, to the governor, and to your federal representatives. And I want to jump back up because I skipped over it by accident, but each community makes a financial contribution to support the ongoing work of the Hudson 7. And that's also a critically important part of keeping the Hudson 7 strong. It's a small contribution from each community, but pooled together allows for the continued work of the Hudson 7. So please continue to budget for that. Right, with that, I think we move to questions.
What do you think? Do you think your municipalities would be interested in having this presentation?
Can I make a comment?
Yep.
First of all, it's very good. I thought it was very complete presentation. The slide towards the very end, what role can you take when you're talking to the municipalities? I thought that the level of difficulty of the slides was on par with the people you're going to be talking to, and they're not scientists or engineers, so I thought on that level it was good. But the slide towards the end, what you can do to help, yeah, I think this slide, at least some variation of this should be maybe the first or second slide. So when you're in front of these people for the first time, you're telling them, this is why we're here. This is what we want you to do to help us. I would present a variation of this slide very early in the presentation, and then go on through the presentation. And then when you get to an item where, say, Hyde Park could help you, like maybe education and awareness, when you get to that slide, you can say, oh, and you can post this on your town's website so we can get the word out. So maybe as you're presenting the slides, when you get to a spot where Hyde Park can help you, point it out. So here's somewhere where you can help us push this through. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Thank you. I think that's smart.
Dan and Mike and the Hudson 7, if you're serious about making that request for municipalities to continue funding in the way that they have, you might want to consider putting that in here. It's not in here, Dan. You mentioned it, but
It's on the second bullet, Rebecca.
oh,
Yeah.
sorry.
And I thought we had it as a stronger or a more specific statement,
I
and
do
I think
too.
it
I
maybe got
remember.
revised. So that's really up to the council on what statement we'd like in there. I thought so, but yeah, I agree. I think it would be good to just make sure it's clear.
Yeah, I think the second bullet is not that clear, Gary. You know, support your community's ongoing role could mean just in terms of the voting of the participants. So it's worth highlighting because Dan elaborated, but there was something that was more explicit and it's not there now.
Well, it does say continued financial support.
It does. I think at some point we'd had a
Oh.
draft that said more specifically, and I don't recall, but it was, when dues are due, dues are, that's not the right word, but when the contribution are, when the budgeting happens, things like that, or a number of years of commitment, something along those lines. So that's really, and that I just want to emphasize, like that line particularly, you tell me, what would you like me to, if I'm the one delivering that message, like what would you like the council to be asking for there?
Can I just retract something? I'm sharing my screen and I see all of us online and it's covering the far right-hand side of the slide, so I didn't see the financial support in how I'm seeing the screen since I'm sharing the screen.
Oh.
So I see it. I moved us all to the left and now I see it. So it's probably a moot point. So thanks.
I have a suggestion. I mean, some of the municipalities aren't going to understand what the items are that are important. And maybe there should be just 2 or 3 or very few examples of what those items could be, that they could act on.
Isn't that the way it was? Did Dan and Mike and the committee, did you decide to get rid of those independent action slides and just list bullets instead?
In the beginning, we had a lot of them, and I'm just saying we only need 3 or 4 as an example, rather than the long list that we had in the beginning when we originally had the draft up.
Okay.
So just to make sure I understand, you're saying the what you can do slide, reduce that to essentials.
No, I didn't. No. I said add in addition to that slide, 3 or 4 action items.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm opening up the questions if that would be useful for people to, because everybody I know at my board, they're going to go, well, I don't know. They're going, they get it. They know we're trying to protect the Hudson River, but they're not going to get what they can do specifically. I view this as like my comprehensive plan. This is my comprehensive plan for the river, all right? And it's the same thing. When we develop a comprehensive plan, we go into very detailed action items. Here's what it is. We don't need to go into that detail, but I think we should give them an example of what, in addition to what they can do to promote and provide financial support and send our operators and do all of that, which really is vital. Here's an example of an action item. Maybe just one, I don't know, an action item.
I would agree. I would say that if, the utility were to say, I'd like to be involved in the spill drill, these are the resources we can, add to that so we can do our tabletop analysis. That's something we can do.
Right.
The communities were, Rhinebeck is looking to contribute this much or this particular piece of equipment is available.
Right. Just thought, and so
homework.
I also think that if we do presentations to the various communities, we should think about maybe tweaking or customizing this presentation for when you meet with the two counties. Because there are certain things that, for example, like zoning code review and things like that, like land use control, those types of things aren't at the county level, but maybe there's other things, whether it's in our planning departments or however we could, our emergency response departments, maybe there's some other type of support that we could provide at the county level. And I don't know if we should be doing them separately or if we should try to get the executives together in the same room and do a presentation to both of them, but we could talk about that. I think it'd be great if Sue could watch this presentation.
I like your idea of getting them together in the same room.
I think that you'll have a better chance of success.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right, that's a great.
Get them here and give them a tour of the place and then do this presentation.
Yeah, excellent. I like that. I mean, if we can get it.
Yeah, well, we can try.
Right.
Another quick comment about the organization of the presentation. If there's one other stakeholder, at least one other stakeholder who's been involved in the process from the beginning, who would be interested in being a part of this presentation, like from our perspective, like this is a community-led program. So the more of this information that comes from your stakeholder group, like the more credibility it kind of lends to our whole program. So if we have a situation where I'm talking in the presentation and then we have a couple of stakeholders talking as well, it would really look like it's like a community built plan that we're all kind of together on. So just a thought, if you're a stakeholder who's been involved in the program and you want to help with these presentations, that would be really helpful. It would make the program look good.
This might be a heavy lift. That's a great idea. And Devin, your idea is a great one too, but I wonder if it's practical that when we go into a community that one of the voting members from that community would tag team with Dan and take up some of that, which would be really great since they're familiar with their own community members and town municipal leaders.
I like having them do that one slide which says, what can you do? I mean, because that's like bringing it back to them. And it's one of them saying, here's what you can do.
That would definitely be the most effective, I think.
Maybe they could sort of open and close, because I feel like those of us who are in this room every month, we know like the first 5 slides, right? We know all the Hudson. So maybe if we're talking to someone else at the municipality or at the county who's not as familiar, we could sort of introduce them, hand it over, and then take that last slide in the end. And here's what our ask is.
Yeah.
That's perfect. Yeah.
I think one of the main points is for the municipalities to put into their codes or zoning requirements what we want them to do. Maybe we can give some examples of that, or something like let them go out and look at where these potential pollution sources are, and so that they physically know where they are.
Yep. So Paul, as an example of that, in the village of Rhinebeck, since we just recently did our comprehensive plan, I included, at my encouragement, the Hudson 7 is included into the comprehensive plan and listed and identified as a resource to be able to work with to improve our water supply systems. So it's documented in our comp plan.
Great job, everyone, really.
I can't thank enough for everybody here that's worked on this plan and contributed to help bring this slide together. And I think it's a great idea that we take it on the road. Well, we just got to figure out who, what, where, and when and how. Okay.
So we're going to start with Hyde Park, is that right? Since there's an open invitation, should we now, how should we proceed with that? Should we organize a presentation and see if Liz or Eric could participate in it? Eric, I'm not going to put you on the
I'll
spot.
do that.
Hmm?
The town, the board meetings are on at 6 o'clock on Monday nights. I think it's the second Monday of each month, but I'd have to check and get back to you.
Mhm.
But let me know when you're ready and I'll help you set that up.
Okay. Just so you know, in everybody's contact sheet, all of the municipal meetings are also in the contact sheet, so that will help us with planning. Should I move forward and look for a time then for Eric and Dan to present in Hyde Park as a first step?
And Mike, I assume you're, and if you
Yeah,
can
yeah.
travel.
Mike,
Yeah,
okay.
I'm still happy to be involved in the presentation. It's just the more representation we have in the talk, the better the program looks.
And Rebecca, I'd like to be at everyone I can possibly be at.
Great.
Awesome.
So would the council like me to proceed in looking for a time for this to debut in Hyde Park? And maybe what I could do is, if you'd like, is put out a notice to all of our members asking if they would also like a presentation and see, I know that this is a lot of time for folks like Dan and Gary and municipal leaders, but I would be happy to at least get the ball rolling to see how we can make it work for everyone. And I presume they would be in person, or would there be a Zoom option? Because Mike is not anywhere near us. How would you like to proceed with that? Should we do hybrid or offer a hybrid?
I know in person works. I don't know how they're set up to do this as a Zoom call. I'd have to look into that. Is Liz on the call? Liz from Hyde Park?
Not tonight, but we can ask and see.
She would know that part better than I do.
So
And I
Mike
can
and,
drive down too if needed. It's really not a big problem. Yeah.
great, and page 2, I presume.
I think she's a lot closer already too.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, let's try to get it going.
Okay.
Rebecca, this is Jonathan Churns here with the Water Authority. I would be happy to be present to represent the utility that serves that community.
You're right. I think you should.
So if I could be kept in the loop for the date, I'll try to make it.
Got it.
Thank
Happy.
you.
Thanks, John.
All right, very good. Well done. Thank you. All right, so we have very little time left. Paul, I hope you don't mind. I'm going to jump right to the letters of approvals immediately because these have been sitting on my desk and our desk for a long time. And so I'd like to do it in mass. I'd like to make a motion to approve all the letters of approval to the one to CSX Transportation, one to the U.S. Coast Guard, New York State DEC, and the two to New York State DEC to be sent out.
So it's a consent agenda.
Yeah. Does any have a second? Seconded. Questions? I hope everybody's had a time. Some of you have been sitting for over a month, so you may have to go back and refresh your memory on them, but we need to get these out, as John mentioned. Just making these letters sends a statement to a lot of people. We're not asking for anything. We're just saying, here we are, right? So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. So Rebecca, I'd like to.
They'll go out first thing in the morning.
Perfect. All right, Paul, there is a few minutes left. One of the things that we've been watching very closely is the salt front study. Could you give us a quick summary? You're muted, Paul.
Okay, the Hudson 7 started this investigation about 2 years ago, or 3 years ago, as a matter of fact. And And finally, in October of last year, the program finally got underway where DEC hired USGS to develop a model of the Hudson River. And they've met a couple of times. They will get us involved. One of the things that they've asked us to do as the Hudson 7 is to get any data on salt, on the salt front and how it affected our water treatment plants. I would imagine Poughkeepsie is probably the best, but I'm really looking for data from the 1960s when we had that very severe drought and how that affected the Poughkeepsie plant. That's all I have.
Great, thank you, Paul. Okay, I'm going to be jumping around because we are running out of time. I want to jump to new business right now because it's important that we elect our council leadership appointments. So I'd like to make a motion to again appoint myself as chair, vice chair Devin, treasurer Elizabeth Spenzia, and secretary Ann. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Anybody else want to jump on? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. All right. Okay, I think this is a good point to stop unless somebody else has comment or want to do.
I have one comment, just that we do have a press release and are ready to share the Hudson 7 campaign book. And I know that you wanted to see if the council everybody wanted the press release to share that announces this campaign book that helps to share the top seven items for each of for 7 campaigns that shows the Hudson 7's work over the last 5 years.
Has everybody had a chance to look at it? I remember Rebecca did a good job of pulling this all together. And it kind of just highlights where we are, and it's good to get everybody out to say, here's what we've been doing for you, right? In protecting the river.
It's a good answer to the DWSP2 announcement, I think.
Is everybody good with that? We can release that as a press release?
Yes, I agree.
All right. I think we're just gonna proceed, right? We can just do this. All right. Very good. Okay.
Two more points. Sorry, Gary, but we got to get it in. So you're not going to be here next month, and you've asked Ben to lead the meeting in April on the 9th?
Sure. Devin.
Great,
Yeah.
Devin.
Yeah, my daughter.
I support you. And finally, there was a request by Elizabeth, and I don't know if you want to talk about it tonight or table it, about whether or not quorum needs for the Hudson 7 and given the body needs to be in person, or if it can be remote.
I want to table that discussion.
Very good.
You know, if you don't mind.
I don't. It's up to you, Paul. That's it.
All right. I'd like to adjourn the meeting at 6 o'clock. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Enjoy the weather and get home before it's dark.
Bye, everybody.
Devin, are you still there, Devin?
Yeah.
Yeah, Hyde Park wants to partake in the Earth Day event that you're having in April.
I'll email you some details.
Okay, all right, but we're on board.
Great, thank you.